makes most women start a business? Is it passion, money, or freedom? Welcome to Female Founders, the podcast that takes you behind the scene with women who are founders and CEOs to help you start and scale a successful business of your own. I am your host, Nagelia de Ravin. Hello everyone, welcome to another episode of Female Founders. In this episode, we are going to have a conversation with Jo Hawkins. She is a mental health counselor and founder of Mental Matters Therapy PLLC. Good morning, Abby. I am so excited to have this conversation with you. You provide counseling and to those suffering from mental health issue with your company, Mental Matters Therapy. So can you tell us more about your work and what get you into this in the first place?
Well, I am a licensed professional counselor and licensed chemical dependency counselor. So my work includes a lot of different age brackets, different types of mental illness, disabilities, things like that. I have been working in it since I got my first license in 2017. I got fully licensed in 2019. So I've been working in it for quite a while. And before that, I got my bachelor's and master's in psychology and then clinical mental health. I got into it basically after I took a class in psychology. I was kind of going to college to start off, but I didn't really have a for sure idea of what I wanted to do. And when I got started, I took a psychology course and basically fell in love. I felt like everything that I saw in behavior patterns and things like that I had seen for basically my whole life was actually labeled and had a word to it for the first time. And so I was really excited about it. I feel like it was something that kind of came natural. And then I just really have a heart for people. I love working with teens, especially. Women are also one of my primary, I guess you'd say, types of clients. I just love it. I love helping people figure something out or see patterns of their behavior that's holding maybe them back from what they want to do, or from what they feel like is their calling in life. And so that's kind of what got me started.
So what made you jump into entrepreneurship?
Into what?
Entrepreneurship, like you say, hey, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. What made you jump into that?
So I actually had some people who really believed in me a lot. When I first started, there was a licensed professional counselor that I had worked at a hospital, and he really influenced me to get into private practice, which is what I wanted to do. But I had kind of been told like, oh, maybe you should go into like a director position at a hospital or move up to even like the CEO of a hospital. But that wasn't really where my passion was. So I got into private practice with a facility out in the Dallas area called North Point Psychiatry, and I just loved it. I've been doing that. I had a contract with them since 2019, and then earlier, I guess this year, I basically was like, I want to be able to pursue this also on my own. And so I started setting up my own practice as well. I had been contacted by Southern Methodist University had a facility that was doing their marketing, and they had asked me about doing some stuff with a referral program. And so they, when they reached out, I was like, well, I'm gonna need to set up more than what I have right now. So I started working on just setting up my own PLLC and working on just kind of getting to where I had my feet under me on just my own. And so that's how that started.
Can you tell us more about your company? Mental Matters Therapy PLLC?
Yes, it's basically a company that works remote. I am the therapist, I guess is what you'd say. And I work with a variety of clients, all different types of illnesses or disorders, having to do with depression, bipolar, anxiety, clients with schizophrenia, things like that. We, or myself, basically provide therapy generally once a week or close to that, is our common setup. And then work with cognitive behavior therapy is the type of theory that I use. And in the future, I would like to bring on some more clients and also do supervision for interns as well. So that's kind of what I'm looking at. Yeah. And then I'm actually interested in doing some stuff with like possibly doing a podcast. I also really want to get back into writing. I used to be really into writing, so I want to do that. And then I'm also going to be teaching psychology or counseling actually at a university this year. So.
Wow, you have your hands full, you know?
Yeah.
You are going to be a very busy woman, I have to say. So, given your background in psychology and your experience in treating mental health problems, how do you leverage your expertise with your client? Do you follow any specific technique to help your client to be able to get them where they need to be?
Yeah, so there's a technique that's called motivational interviewing. And it's basically a form of providing the client with a way to look at where they're at, where they want to be, and identifying their own steps in a unique way. It's kind of a way for them to identify what steps they want for themselves to pursue. So let's say a person has an issue with maybe they want to get healthier, okay? And so then you identify, well, where do you feel like you're at right now? Where do you see yourself in the long run? What does that goal look like? And then how can we back up to just the basics right now and say, what is that first step? What is that first thing that's not too big, not too small? I'm a very big person on like an 80% situation. Like even if we don't hit that goal 100%, let's focus on trying to get to that first attainable goal at like an 80% mark. So what does that look like? What is the thing that you need to do to get to that level? Whether it's you want to start taking vitamins. Okay, let's like set a schedule. Well, do you even have a calendar? Do you have a planner? Like, do you have a pen? Like, we are breaking it all down to like the nitty gritty. And then what time are you going to do this throughout the day? And when are you gonna do this, and how often throughout the day, or how often throughout the week are you going to keep yourself accountable? And are you going to set an alarm for that so that you actually have like something that's going to keep you accountable? Are you going to have a partner that's going to keep you accountable? So just breaking everything down into the most tiniest pieces so that it's doable, and the person has to really process and think through all the pieces, and that helps like them move forward and not get overwhelmed by taking on too much at one time. So
wow. I like that because you make sure that they got everything they need so they can come back to you and say, well, I didn't do this because I don't have a calendar. I don't have a pen either. And I look all over my purse in the house, but there is no pen. So they look for, I didn't know, because people will look for all the excuses in the world just to not get something they actually really need to get done. So I like that part. But you also have teens. You also help teens, but from teens to adults. So which one do you find needs your help the most?
Since COVID started, I guess you would say, maladaptive coping strategies of teens has greatly increased. And so kids were spending a lot of time alone by themselves. I repeatedly had clients who would say that they feel like they lost their social skills. Not just teens, but because the schools were shut down in the majority of the country. But specifically because I'm licensed in Texas, I work with, teens just in Texas, and a lot of them were sitting at home by themselves. Mainly their only form of really connecting with people, they didn't get to do their sports or anything else. So the main form of connection was through like social media and stuff. So they're kind of developed more issues, even with like isolation, depression, issues with not exercising, having problems even like weight, things like that, because they're just not getting to go out and be active, issues with their relationships, making friends. A lot of things just became stagnant throughout the time that COVID was going on. And so they had a really hard time connecting and staying connected. So I would say teens, when it comes to, they were still in the development of their life. They were not in their career or anything like that. They didn't just have a 2-week shutdown. They had a year plus of a
Gross.
shutdown for them. And so really trying to connect with them has been probably the most they've needed me the most at this point. So yeah. And
So how did you would you say that the parents can help them to make them be able to understand what's going on and then be able to deal with it in a certain way where it's not creating a mental issue for them?
yes, I think that the parents have the ability to do that. I think a lot of parents were really I would probably say, and I feel for them because I'm not a parent, and I see like where, they were both concerned for their own safety. I had repeatedly parents who also have their parents living with them. So they would have, maybe a grandparent in the home plus their teenager. Their teenager's healthy, wants to go out and live their lives. Grandparent, is extremely high risk. And then you've got the parents who are at risk maybe, but not as high risk as the grandparents. And so I think deep down is just having like a lot of empathy for their teen and trying to help them connect as much as they can with people, not just through like video games or social media, but involving them in like online activities, including I kept telling people like try and get in a book club or try to do something where you're learning with other people, do Zoom, do FaceTime with your friends, not just video gaming and texting, have conversations like this right here, what we're doing. So, and then just
I love that.
really being empathetic. They're still in that developmental, there's still development, they're not completely done growing, so
No.
they need a lot more.
Exactly. So with now that COVID is slowing down and everything is getting a little bit better, I will say.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes.
what would you say to people that's being in that home for like the work from home, go to school
Yeah.
from home, everything is from home, barely go anywhere. So now
Yeah.
they need to start going back to society and feel
Yeah.
that, wait a minute, I'm not ready for this. What
Yeah.
advice would you give them mentally to be ready to go out there and start their life again?
I actually talk to them a lot about like just small ways that they can start connecting with people at school again. Again, motivational interviewing. They say like, okay, I do want to connect with people. They say like, I want to make friends. I don't have friends. How can we do this? So we have like kind of a strategy of going in, sitting down and just saying, hey, to whoever is sitting next to you. And I would tell them, I don't care who it is. I'm like, I don't care who it is. And I said, if you want to start with your teacher, every time you walk into the classroom and you sit down, look at the least scariest person around you and say, hey, like, that's it. Don't go. This isn't rocket science. I was like, this is not rocket science. You don't have to make it complicated. Just say, hey, show yourself to be friendly. And then everything else will follow suit. So even this upcoming new semester for people, I'm telling them the same thing. Also, I'm telling them to get involved in some extracurriculars. If they can do some sports, that's great because you have to work together and there's a lot of communication. When you're sitting in class and even when I had the kids that were going back, they were in their cubicles. They had stuff surrounding them on all, 3 or 4 sides, and they were separated by plexiglass. They had, So even when they were sitting down, they were socially distanced. Then there was plexiglass. Then there were masks. So now when they're going back out there, just making it simple, not trying to overcomplicate it, and then trying to get them involved in something where they actually communicate with other people has been good. So they've been practicing that. Some of them getting like into drama or theater, some of them getting into the sports again, just getting back out there.
So you've been really helping teens to get themselves out there again and be able to live their life, because you can only be a teen once in your entire life. That's it. This is it.
Yeah. Yes. Trying to get them back out there.
So you deal with you are a part of a team, Denton County, the crisis team. Can you tell us more about that?
Yeah. So back when I was on the crisis team for Denton County. It was basically a team with it's basically as far as I know, every county in Texas has one. Most counties have one. It's the crisis team where you go out and you do the assessments on recently either clients who are in that county that are either recently tried to complete suicide, had an aborted attempt, a completed attempt, things like that, where they were attempting suicide or homicide, or they were currently experiencing psychosis. We would go into the facilities, whether it was a hospital or a jail, and do the assessment. The hospitals were generally like in an ER setting. Sometimes we would also have to if the client didn't feel comfortable going to a hospital to meet us, or if they didn't want to come to the actual facility, we would go even to their homes with, so we would actually go into their homes and do the assessments there in the privacy of their home, but we did have to have law enforcement. And so they would go in, make sure everything is safe before we go. And we would basically set up computers and the assessments, and we would get into anything. It could be their previous history of suicide, their most recent symptoms, what their plan was or what they had recently done, what their family structure is like, if they have a support system to help ensure their safety, or if we need to send them onto a facility so that they can get stable. But it was mainly a stabilization type of assessment where we're just trying to figure out where they're at and what they need to get stable and to stay safe. So, yeah.
Wow. You didn't feel like going to the home, you didn't feel like, I don't know, scared? Especially for someone who tried to commit suicide.
Right. I would say when you go through from the education background to the trainings that we had to have, the trainings are very intensive, like very, very, very intensive. We, like when we would go, into a jail or anything, I mean, the level of like clearance and things like that you have when you're giving them your badge and you're going in and you're doing these assessments and stuff, like they have trained you so much. I think that they do a great job with it, but you also have like law enforcement with you if you're concerned about that. But deep down, it really just comes to needing to have a level of empathy of like, where is this person at? Are they safe? Are they okay? And figuring out what needs to be done for them. So it really doesn't even have to do with you. It really doesn't have to do with you. It's just, you're just trying to do your job and make sure that they're okay and safe, so.
Right. You never meet any one of them that eventually killed themselves or something happened anyway?
Unfortunately, that is kind of a very common part of mental health in general, is that you don't really meet people who walk through the doors of even like a private practice, just coming in for therapy, who are in the best place of their life. And unfortunately, that is very, very common. It's also something, though, that I think that most therapists, and the best way I can describe with trying to just cope with it, is that you have to know that you are this part of this person's life and you're trying to help them move forward with whatever they need to move forward with, whether that's their career or getting over a breakup or their education or whatever, but that you kind of have to be humble enough to be able to recognize that you're only a small percentage of what's going on in their life, and let them also give them all the resources you can, provide them with as much support as you can, but also accept that that is a part of the job. Yeah.
I feel you. Just listening to you talking about it kind of feels sad.
I understand. I was like, and it is a part of the job, but it's something that I think that when you have I had great professors, great supervisors, they helped me really understand what my role is and stay in that role,
Don't try to get out of it because it will get too sensitive, right?
Yeah. And you really have to, I think that to keep from almost like not let yourself almost be that prideful to think that you can control so much, you just have to stay in a very humble role to do this job. Like, it's not about me, and I will help however much I can, but also recognize like, I'm only one person and I have to stay in a very humble space.
I think that's a hard one to do, because especially as women, we tend to care for people a lot more than we're supposed to.
Yes. Yes. They teach you a lot in school about that.
You know what? You also was an advisory board member for the clinical mental health counseling program at Tarleton State University. Yes. Cool name. I just can't say it right. So can you tell us more about that?
So they meet every year, go over new goals, new curriculum, and I love the school that I went to, the university I went to, and I'm actually going to be teaching at. They do such a good job at just keeping it real. We actually talked about that in this last meeting. I think it was probably in April was the last one. So I think I've been in it 3 or 4 years now. I'm thinking three or four. But basically what they go over is new curriculum. They go over any kind of new syllabi or new program. They're actually starting a new doctorate program for counseling even. So they go over that. They explain like, what are the upcoming things that are going to be happening? What do they need help with? And then they get feedback from all sorts of professionals. So I'm one that's in it, but they have like, their professors are in it. Director of education, I believe, was in it. Director of the health sciences, human services area. Basically, it's a brainstorming time. And then they want feedback because I'm an alumni from there who graduated from their program. They kind of want feedback on like, what do we do well? And what do you see now as a person who's been out of the program for 5 years? What do you see that we need to work on? And some of it that I've talked about was being an entrepreneur, because there were things that I've had to learn later on that I was like, man, that's a lot of work. And that's something I didn't know about, stuff like that. And they're great at just kind of taking that insight, I guess, and then applying it to different classes, adding it in to different classes and stuff like that. So
wow, I love that.
Right.
I didn't know school, especially university, do that. They actually listen to past students and make the change. Yeah.
Yes. And they really have, they have very, very high like passing rates with the national boards that you have to pass after you do everything you have to do. Then you have to go take national boards. They have very high passing rates. They are KCREP accredited, which is a pretty big thing that you have to have now in a lot of universities for counseling to graduate with it. But anyway, yeah, they're great. They take a lot of ownership, and they definitely listen, so.
Kudos to them. That's all I can say. I love that part. But you're also going to be teaching. So can you tell us more about the teaching part?
So I have been a licensed professional counselor, got fully licensed in 2019, and then have been in private practice. Well, I reached out to the director of the counseling program at this point and asked them, if there were any options for doing that, because I love expanding my horizons to basically anything and everything, honestly. So I'm like, I want another part of my brain being used or something, I guess is what I'm thinking. Like, I want another thing. So I reached out to them earlier this year, and they offered a adjunct position teaching a counseling class. So I'm going to be teaching a counseling class, I think like a pretty small group of kids, like 20. I believe it's like a sophomore level. So I'm excited. I'm going to start that actually this Thursday. Today I need to finish up my syllabi. So that'll be really cool. Yeah.
You're starting this Thursday?
Yes, this Thursday. So I'm like, that'll be.
Oh, congratulations. That's super cool.
I know. I feel like a kid again. Starting college.
Well, it's okay. You look 25 anyway, so you'll pass.
Thanks. I appreciate that.
So you have so many things going on. How do you maintain work-life balance?
I basically streamline everything in my life, if that makes sense. And I also would have to say, I don't really have a blanket statement for it. I try not to make like major blanket statements because I can always change this, but I streamline like everything. So whether it's like if I'm dating somebody, or if I am like I'm very involved with stuff with my family, horse activities and stuff like that. I love drinking coffee. I make time for the things I love almost every day, whether it's going and getting coffee, or like we were talking about earlier, I love makeup. Like I love doing the fun things that I love, but I also streamline things. So if I have, let's say, for example, if I have like something I want to do, even like with my church or something, I'm going to have a schedule and I'm going to have streamlined what can I get done in this day, and then kind of work on it from like level of importance. And then also I try to make sure I don't become a perfectionist. If there's anything I have seen, if there's anything I have seen from my clients, or even from like, people who I've seen who are really successful, I try to stick with more of like an 80% situation. If I am doing a pretty good job, I need to be okay with that, because I can spend twice as much time on something that I'm trying to make perfect, and then I don't get everything else done. And I try not to do that. I also feel like it takes the fun out of everything when you're trying to just make things perfect. So I try to lean into the discomfort of just letting things be sometimes, and then streamline everything, schedule things, and not let things get too complicated or try and make things too perfect. So, yeah.
So pretty much you make sure that things getting done the way they're supposed to be getting done, without you trying to be that perfect person, because at the end of the day, who's perfect anyway? There's no perfection.
Yeah. You're basically, you've already lost before you started when you want something to be perfect. And so I'm like, that ruins it.
Forget about it now.
Right.
So how can someone get your services?
So there's a few different options. I primarily use either Psychology Today for marketing, or they can look me up on my website. It's mentalmatterstherapy.com. They can also just look at my name, Abby Hawkins, and take a look at my website, kind of go over like, whether they want to do a insurance plan or they want to do cash pay, they want to contact me and find out some stuff before they even set stuff up. But the website's probably the best. I also have like my contact information on all that. So they can email, call, they can send a chat message. It's easy. Yeah.
It's easy. So right now it's strictly online. So pretty much if they book something with you, get to meet with them one-on-one online like we are doing right now.
Right. Yes, I'm only doing individual counseling. I am not a licensed marriage and family therapist, so I try not to do anything that's outside of any of my normal realm or scope of practice. So I mainly do just individual. And then I do telehealth like this. It works well with people's schedule generally, and they don't have to drive anywhere, and they don't have to, try and get there early and this and that. So that's what I've been doing. Yeah.
And you only can practice in Texas, or can they be anywhere within the United States?
Correct. So you can only practice within Texas unless I get a license in different states. Some states have reciprocity, which basically just means that you can, let's say, if you're maybe on the East Coast or something, there might be a state that has reciprocity with another state or something like that, but Texas does not. So I'm only licensed in the state of Texas and only can practice within the state of Texas with any clients.
So you have been doing that for a very long time. So how do you feel about it? Do you feel like that is something that you're going to keep doing, and this is like your retirement, this is it for me? Or do you feel like perhaps in a few years you will change or do something different?
I have looked at getting a doctorate in the future. If I got like a PsyD is what it's called, or which is psych doctorate, or if I got like a PhD or something like that, I might do more psychology assessments. And basically what those are the diagnostics where you go in and you do the assessments, let's say for maybe someone who's on the spectrum with autism or something like that. So that kind of thing would be interesting. So I've looked at that. I also did an expert witness like thing last summer, and I've thought about getting my doctorates to do more in that realm. between those two things, those are probably the things I'm the most interested in. I don't have any really drive to be a full-time professor or anything, but I do enjoy adding that to some of the things that I do already. So those are probably it. I might look at, doing something with, media or something like that at some point with TV or with like a radio station or something. But other than that, maybe writing. But I love what I do, and I don't really ever plan on completely leaving it until literally probably when I'm like to where I can't do anything. I would probably still be doing this. I can always turn on the computer. So
I don't think it's hard. Give me a second, ma'am.
Yes.
A, B, another B. I'm almost there, ma'am. Sorry, I'm 95.
Exactly. I would. And everybody that knows me was like, my goal is not retirement. It's not a long-term goal of mine.
I think you'll be 100 years old and still be working.
Yes.
Yeah, you're not giving up. Nah. I'm on it until the end, people. I'm here to stay.
Yes. I'm like, I can always turn on a computer. So.
Hey, it might take you a few minutes, but you'll get it turned on.
Yes, I'll make it happen. You never know. By that time, you might not even need a computer. You might have, something else going. So this might be something old by that point.
I don't know. Maybe even if you have an Apple, maybe they will be like, Siri, turn on my computer. No need to type. Siri, tell my client, okay.
We're good.
Oh my goodness, you are so funny. I love it. So, I know that you don't want to leave your field. You love what you do. And I also know that you like to continue helping. But do you want to keep your focus more into teens, or you will say that you want to keep it more into women?
The older I get, I'm sure eventually the teens, right now I'm cool to the teens, so that's good. But I'm sure later I'll be boring to the teens. So I'll probably work a lot more in women's issues and things like that. I basically have had that as a plan since I was trying to think, probably since I basically started college, was that I wanted to be able to do something like that. I used to volunteer at a pregnancy crisis center and stuff. And I just love like working with women in general. And so I probably will have to, once they think that I'm a little bit too old to work with teens, or the teens don't want to work with me anymore, because they'll probably be like, oh, she's too boring later. But until then, I'll work with the teens and probably transition mainly to women.
I don't think that the teens will never think you are boring. They probably will want to come see you every day.
Oh my gosh.
You are fun to be around. You can't be boring at all.
Well, that's what I was like, hopefully I don't age prematurely.
Oh my goodness. So I know that you also have a lot of plans. But you also talk about the podcast. Do you have any plan on when you like to launch your own podcast?
This is so funny. I actually was thinking about launching it in the next couple weeks while I'm teaching classes, because I feel like I would have a lot of things with the classes I'm going to be teaching that would give me like new thoughts, new perspectives. Because when you're working with 20 college kids at a time, you could get a lot of cool perspectives that, they're thinking, or new, like kind of almost like world event style stuff where it's like, how does this affect counseling, and how does this affect counseling, when everything that I talk about with actual clients is going to be confidential. And so I can't talk about that in a podcast, but I can talk about some of the stuff that I'm going over in the class that I'm teaching, and just kind of like a new perspective on that, because I'll have to be up to date and kind of abreast with everything new. So I'm thinking that would just merge really well. So I might be starting that sooner than later.
I think it would be fun too, because also being able to give all this information will also help people as well.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, we're supposed to gain all those knowledge. We're supposed to pass it on, not just keep it all to ourselves.
I love that. Yeah, that's what I was like. I think that would be great. I think it would merge really well. I wouldn't have to worry about new content, because I'd have new content all the time. So
Is there anything you wanted me to ask you that I didn't ask you?
I don't think so. You're amazing. Thank you so much for just asking me to be on. I appreciate it. I think this is really, it's inspired me actually, to think about things, just getting ready for this in my mind. It was good for me. So thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Oh, it's my pleasure. And I love talking to you, especially psychology. It's something that I really enjoy. So that my degree is in psychology. So, and I love talking to other people that study psychology, and I love to learn what they learn, because different schools, different things that we learn. So what is any advice would you have for female entrepreneurs?
Yes, I do. I would say, if you don't, this sounds so cliche, but don't let fear of anything hold you back. And when you are afraid of something, dive into that and figure out why. I actually did some stuff in the last few weeks that I never thought I would do. One thing, I went skydiving, and getting prepared for this. When people ask me about how to build confidence, I tell them you have to do hard things and prove to yourself that you can do it. And don't worry about doing it perfect. That's the thing. When you worry about doing it perfect, then that holds you back. And that's that kind of 80% thing. Like just go do it. Half of the whole thing is just showing up. I did not have to skydive perfectly, but I did have to go do it. And when I was even just thinking about this interview today, I just had to tell myself, you know what? I jumped from an airplane, standing on the wing, 10,000 feet up in the air, head first, did a flip in the air. I can do an interview. So it was one of those things where it's like, just lean in. A lot of therapists say lean into the discomfort. And that's what I would say is like, just go, like, do it. Don't worry if it's perfect, figure it out. Like, just go start, and don't worry about it being perfect.
Yes, perfection. I think that is something we as women, we love perfection. We try to be perfect. We need to be perfect to go apply for that job. We need to be perfect at our job before we go apply for the job. We need to be perfect at this before we go do this. Oh, I can't start a business because I don't know how to start it in the first place. Well, duh.
Yeah, you're not going to. And that type of fear where it has to be perfect before you can actually do it, that's going to hold you back from everything the rest of your life, And so that's where I was like, don't worry. You know what? If you go and you do something crazy outlandish, that's going to give you the confidence you need to be like, you know what? I can go start a company. Like, I'm like, just go do it. Like, don't let anything hold you back, and don't let the idea of it needing to be perfect,
Exactly. So because we can't really be perfect, and it's impossible. It's just impossible. No matter how much you try.
Failure when you do that.
Yes, that's when you fail. You're right. Yes. So I know school is opening. For example, in the state of Florida, school is already open, and in some other state as well. And I know it's very much overwhelming for mothers, and then it can even be for fathers that's on their own. So what advice would you have for them with school opening, sending the kids back to school and dealing with having parents at home? We still need to take some protections. It can be mentally a lot, not just for the kid, but also for the parents to deal with. What advice would you have for them to manage all these things, be able to still live their normal life again?
Some of that, I hope I'm understanding that like well enough, the question, because I'm like, my mind is kind of going to the same thing as a therapist. I can only, there's a very small percentage of life that I have any control over, and it's a humbling thing, but to not think that you have more control than you really do. Because if you tell yourself like, oh, this is my job to protect my parents, this is my job to protect my kids, this is my job, that also again is kind of in therapy we call them thinking errors. It's where we feel like we're so powerful, or we're so superhuman that we can do those things and that we can protect everyone. Again, it's great to do maybe an 80%er on that too. Like, put yourself back into the role of, I am also a human. I do not have the control of all of that. And the thinking process that goes into that, I would say, is a dangerous thinking process if you tell yourself that you do have that much power, because that will increase anxiety. If you feel like you fail, that will increase depression. That will increase a lot of symptoms that, you really don't have control over. And to identify that, there's an activity where they actually like have somebody sketch out their hand, and they put the things inside of their hand are the things that they have control. And then all the stuff outside of that is what they have no control. And there's a lot more outside of that than what's inside of that,
So pretty much what you are saying, if you don't have control over it, you shouldn't be worried about it. Just worry about the things that you can control yourself.
Yes. And even you can worry, but I had a supervisor one time tell me, for as much as we do the worrying side and the anxiety side, you think we'd be better at it by now. Because
we are not.
It kind of just like takes away our joy, takes away the good times that we have.
I feel like actually we got worse with it because especially with COVID, we were not ready for that. It just boom, it's right here. What?
Yes. The world was not ready.
No, the world was not ready. So we just spent our time freaking out. That's pretty much what we were doing, and then we forgot to live a life because not a lot of us didn't make it.
We actually have been spending a ton of time talking to people about that. What I saw was a lot of obsessive compulsive disorder type of tendencies coming out of that in the grasp for a need to control things. And one of the things that I've been talking to people a lot was the Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and where our basic needs are the bottom 2 layers, and then the top 3 layers are going to be like more self-actualization, love and belonging, wanting to feel good about life, and not letting that go when they go into that crisis mode. That's what happened to a lot of people. They kind of let the top 3 layers of Maslow's hierarchy of need really go. And they just focused on just mere survival. And that put, a lot of people in that state of, I'm just trying to get through the day. I'm not doing anything that makes me happy anymore. I'm just in survival mode, and trying to be really aware of that and regain that happiness again, finding their happiness again, instead of like just staying in that survival mode, which a lot of us had to do. But now we kind of need to like regain like our passions, our love, and stuff that we enjoy.
Exactly. At the end of the day, we have one life to live. We need to enjoy the only one life we know that we have, which is right here, right now, that moment.
Yes. For
well,
sure.
Thank you, Abby. I appreciate you taking the time to have this conversation with me and sharing your knowledge with me. And I love talking with a smart woman like yourself that is out there supporting other smart women. And it's amazing because we need that. We need to step out of our comfort zone, opening more businesses, supporting one another, and then making things happen. If we don't, the next generation will be in trouble.
Yes. And I want to say, like, congratulations to you and everything that you do too, because I'm like, it's amazing and it's really inspiring. It builds a lot of confidence, I think, for people when, they're given these types of opportunities and they get to feel good about themselves and what they're doing, and it's acknowledged, especially by other women. I think that's amazing.
Thank you. It's a mission of mine. I felt like there's a big gap there, and we need to fix that gap, and only women can fix that gap. So I'm taking that step, and then a bunch of women has been following, and also that a lot of women that's done it in the past as well, I have been following them. So I think that together, if we continue that, there will be a change for the next generation. Definitely.
It's amazing. I know. It'll be great. Our daughters will have it made.
Absolutely. It's not just us having that pretty face, but we're also smart. We got it going on. I appreciate you. Thank you so much. I have a great conversation with Abby. Sometimes we fear reaching for help because we don't want to be judged by others. But a mental health counselor like Abby provides a safe space for people to talk about their feelings and thoughts without being judged. Thank you, Abby, for taking the time to have this conversation with me. Let me know your thoughts about this episode with Abby. And to learn more about Abby and Mental Matters Therapy, visit www.mentalmatterstherapy.com. Thank you for listening to Female Founders Podcast. That's it for this week's episode. Be sure to follow us on your favorite podcast app or connect with us on wormel.com so that you don't miss our next episode. See you next time. Bye for now.